This is the TGRAINS crop modelling tool, which you will use in your groups for the second workshop task. The facilitator in your group will be in control of the model and will share their screen with you. They'll help you change values and investigate scenarios based on the conversations you've had in part 1. By modelling agriculture within the region, we can try to represent the current understandings or concerns we have about it and investigate alternative scenarios for future food production. As with any statistical model, there'll be things that can't be represented well and things which can't be represented at all. To quote statistician George Box, all models are wrong, but some are useful. Our model could be thought of as wrong in that reality is very messy and complex, and any statistical model of it will inherently reduce the number of variables that can be considered. In our case, the only variable we can change is the distribution of crops and livestock within the local region. But we hope that our model can be useful in thinking about alternative future food scenarios and will inform the discussions that you've been having within your groups. The tool is split into two panels, representing inputs and outputs. To the left, we have the sidebar, which displays the kind of inputs that we can make to the model, the different kinds of crops and livestock which are grown and reared within the region. Some of these, with the arrows, are categories that can be broken down into their constituent crops. For example, cereals breaks down into 4 separate crops. To the right, we have the output view, where the results of the modelling are displayed to us. Below this, we have a comment section, which we'll use as part of the workshop to record the conversations we've had using the model. These comments will be used again in the third section of the workshop. The first concept I want to introduce to you is the idea of business as usual. This means that everything is being modelled pretty much as it exists in reality at present, in terms of the crops and livestock within the region, and nothing has been changed. Most of the graphs shown within the model tool, like this one, are at 0 in the business as usual state, because they represent the change from the norm. Changing the area taken up by a crop or animal is a change away from business as usual, and this is what the graphs in the tool illustrate. Let me show you. If I change a variable within the model, for example cereals, we can see that the amount of area taken up by the crop changes. This also shows in the available area bar at the top right of the results window, which is divided into upland and lowland area. Changing the value for a crop or animal will allocate the area between upland and lowland based on whether it is suitable to grow or rear it there. The available area quantity in the top right also shows the remaining area that can be cropped. Because all the sliders have to be able to increase to fill up the full area, the remaining area is constantly adjusted when you move a slider. All of the sliders have a maximum value of the existing area cropped plus the remaining area. This is why they seem to be linked and why all of them move when one is adjusted. The remaining area decreases as you increase any one of the sliders, so the others have to move to show that there's less remaining area to fill up. I can submit a query to the model with the changed value for cereals by clicking the Submit button. We can also reset all of these values to the business as usual state by clicking the Reset button. This returns the crop and livestock distributions to their default values. The model will run the query and then give us back the results, briefly showing a loading spinner. This shouldn't take more than about 5 seconds. The results are broken down into 3 different categories: for production, environmental effects, and nutrition. These are split up using the tabs along the top. In the production tab, we can see the results of our change where we increase the amount of cereals grown in the region on the amount of profit earned by farmers in the region and in the number of calories delivered by the agricultural products. We can see that we're producing more calories and the amount of area cropped has gone up. To the right of this panel, we can see that over the region there's £6,500 less profit being made per year. Sometimes the results of modelling can be surprising, and you should discuss in your groups where the results of modelling don't line up with your expectations. You can also submit another query to the model to see if another run gives different results. If I move over to the Environment tab, we can see the effects of changing the area used to grow this crop on greenhouse gas emissions, the amount of nitrogen that's leached into watercourses from fertilisers, groundwater pollution from pesticides, and the effects of these on fish, birds, bees and beneficial arthropods, for example small insects like beetles, centipedes and other pollinators like butterflies and moths. In this graph, a lower value means less of an impact on that species from farming. Higher values in the graph mean that the environmental impacts are worse than the business as usual state. In the statistics panel below, we can see the change in the value of the amount of greenhouse gases produced. On the Nutrition tab, we have 4 separate panels. The first of these shows a pie chart for the amount of nutrition in terms of the main food groups produced within the area. This pie chart updates when we change the types of food grown and reared within the local area to show what food groups are being served. Below this, there's a pie chart for an example recommended diet called the Eat Lancet diet. This does not change with the variable input to the model, but is there to demonstrate how far away the nutrition produced within the region is from an example diet. This is based on recommendations made in the Eat Lancet report, which recommends a healthy diet that can be achieved sustainably within planetary boundaries. To the right of this, we have a comparison chart which shows how these line up. The red shape shows us the current state. The blue shape shows us how nutrition is distributed in reality right now in the business as usual state that I mentioned earlier. The green shape shows us the distribution recommended by the Eat Lancet plate. Something you may like to try in your discussion is to investigate if it's possible to move towards this diet within the local region. You can turn any of these shapes on or off by clicking them in the legend above the graph. Finally, there is a statistics panel where we can see the number of people who can be fed according to the Eat Lancet diet using only food produced within the local area. This again changes as we query the model with the food production areas in the sidebar. We can see the population of the area and the percentage of that population which can be fed using only food produced within the local region. We can also see the limiting factor in the diet compared to the Eat Lancet plate. This is the food group that we need to increase production of in order to feed more people locally. The final tab shows the history view. This tab contains all of the different changes that you have made to the model through your process of exploration of it. You can use this to go back to previous states and load in the changes from before. We can also delete states, like so, which show up in the Deleted States window, and we can clear out all of our states by pressing the New Session button. This will wipe our history for our current session, although this can be reloaded by clicking the Show Sessions button and clicking on that session. To edit an old session, we have to create a new copy of it by clicking the Fork button. Finally, I'll guide you through adding a comment to the model. To add a comment, you will need to put in a name and email. For this, we can just use group1 and the email group1@tgrains.com. This will be saved for future comments after you've entered it once. We'll ask you to leave comments as a group which represent the discussions that you've had around the model. For example, maybe you've been having a discussion about how the food system in the local area could become more sustainable. In the comment, I'd like you to briefly describe the discussion that you had and the conclusions that you came to, if any. You can tag these comments using a set of predefined themes, from anything from concerns for small businesses and food poverty to other methods of farming, like organic farming. There are also other categories within the drop-down boxes. The crops and livestock tags will automatically be selected based on the values you've changed in the left-hand sidebar. Finally, you can also draw attention to any outputs that you're particularly concerned about or have come up with in your discussion by selecting these tags within the Outputs box. Post your comment by clicking Post, and it will appear below the comments section. This was a very quick introduction to the model tool, and I'm not expecting you to memorise all of what I've said. You'll be able to go through this gently with your facilitator in your group in the next half hour. If there's anything you're unclear about, please just ask your facilitator for clarification.